an expert under the hood of the RPL devices. You know, I programmed them, I did lots of them on it, lots of things on them, I created them. I was really an expert at the under the hood RPL machines. That made me, by default, an expert at the above the hood. So that made me a power user of the 48 of the RPL devices. Now, the very interesting thing, as people ask me questions such as, you know, how do I do that on Prime, is I'm obviously an expert at the under the hood of Prime. But because of the architecture, that does not by any stretch of the imagination make me any good at actually using the calculator as a user, which is very annoying. You know, when you go in front of people and it's like, oh yeah, I know that calculator, I made it. So, oh great, how do I do that? I have no clue. I can tell you how it works, but I have to look at the documentation. I have to, you know, figure out how to actually use the damn thing. It's very, very annoying. How do I do something how do I create a program that is going to do something on a key press? So shift program, I'm in the programming environment, new, oh, and that's a debug, that's a new version, you get the CAS. PRG, what? Whatever. Okay, so I'm going to clear all of that. And I'm going to do menu key. So the menu key has most of the time nothing in it, but sometimes it's got some nice contextual stuff, such as create user key. And I'm going to put it in tangent, and here's my background information here. Or my data. So what I'm going to do when you press tangent is enter the name of a program, get digits, for example, is what I'm going to put on tangent. Now I'm going to create a program, export get digits of A. And here I'm going to make a list of, let me actually take my calculators because I've got that one here. Program, so I don't have to recreate it. IP of FP of A column equal A divided by 10. And I'll explain you after why I'm using that, and you're going to laugh. Where's the multiplication on a US keyboard? Comma C, comma 1, comma 2, A. Okay, here's my program. I'm going to check. No error in program. I'm all good. I'm going to go back in home. I'm going to get in user mode. I'm going to get in stay in user mode. Tangent. I got my get digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now. Shift program, what did I do wrong? Oh, it's missing a 1 here. Let's try again, get digit. Well, the whole point was to do a user key. It is. So that wasn't a lot of things. What I'm getting here, of course, is an integer, a number as an input, and I get all the digits separated. Might be useful, for example, if you do it on 2 number, because then if I did it again here, copy, and I put another number here, I still have them separated. And if I do that plus that, and I'm going, by, I don't know why, I'm going to do a modulo 5. What? Well, oh yeah, it's because I entered the number, numbers that do happen to return 444. But what I do right there is I take 2 numbers, I separate the digit, I add the digits block by block, I do a modulo by 5, and here I've got a bunch of return digits, which is pretty much similar to the RPL programming contest, by the way.
Yeah, right.
The only thing you need to do to finish the job would be to multiply each of these digits by the appropriate power of 10, do a sigma list, and you get your result. And it takes one line of code really in prime to do so. So here's an example of a very simple program. Now if I go in...
Now you called a built-in function to separate the number into the string?
No, I didn't. Let me
program.
show the program here. The separation, the way I did the separation is through
the
make
function
list.
make list, I guess, was it?
Exactly. I use make list, and I'm telling it you're going to loop between 1 and 12. So you're really going to be looping 12 times.
Can you query the keyboard so if you could touch an area to do something?
What do you mean? Like that?
No, that program, you could put something up on the screen, so if you touch the screen, it would execute what you did.
No, I don't have that type of thing yet. We could, but there is a way to get mouse information. There is I think it's get mouse command.
Because there was a suggestion
IO.
that if you're in RPN mode or whatever, and you have your numbers on the stack, that one way of showing your commas would be to just touch the number, and then it would just display those commas.
We don't have. There isn't that type of user grabbing of screen location yet. There is a way. If your program is running, you do have a way to know that the user is pressing the mouse. So you could potentially do a game which will use the mouse position. The mouse command is going to give you this XY coordinate locations and things like that, and you can use that. But that's while the program is running. You don't have a way to get your program code out of context because of a mouse event. So if I continue looking at my make list here, which is a nice little set of functions, I've got my input, which is A. I divide it by 10, and I store the result in A. So that's how I do the getting of the nth amount of data. I get the fractional part, which really is going to get me that last digit. I multiply it by 10. I take the integral, the non-fractional part, and that's going to be the nth element of my list. So here I'm really looping 12 times, but I did not create a for loop. It's very fast because
the make list has a loop built in.
Exactly, I'm using it's basically a built-in loop. And the prime full solution to the RPL programming context does not use any loop, because I do a make list, that's exact same code to break the first number, plus the same with the second number. I add the two lists together bitwise,
Do you have an inverse? Do you have an inverse that will
There's a rev list.
turn the list back into a number, concatenate?
The way I did it, and it's a little bit long to type, but it's along the line of shift copy. No, I'm not going to do it like that.
Well, you don't have to do it. I just wanted.
I'd like to be able to project what's here.
Do the same thing because a lot you're giving stuff away.
It doesn't matter because you can't really do it on the other calculators. No? Or is Gene looking at me and wants to kill me right now? I'm sorry. You should have jumped on to me earlier.
I gave up years ago.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to. Well,
There's not a make list on here, I don't think.
Yeah, the make list on the 48 or 50G series is not gonna allow you to do that.
Not gonna lie.
So it's not like I'm giving away a big thing. But one of the things which is interesting to look at here is that in modern programming, we are going away from loops. More and more, you're not going to see a for loop. What you have is working with states, working with objects instantiated, which have data, and you're going to be applying a function to everything in that object. And more in C++, in Java, and things like that, you see that type of behavior. And for old timers like you and I, it's very, very hard to understand what the hell is happening in these programs, because it's really all done by states. Instead of being nice and sequential, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, and you've got that object instantiated, and the object hides what's happening behind, and then you apply operators to these objects, a generic object, and something happens in the background. And you don't really know why or know what, you just know it's happening, and at the end it's done. And you see that in one example I've seen not that long ago, and I'm just going to type something here just so you can see it. You know, and I'm talking C programming here. Where's the, oh, here they are. And I see something like that. What is it? You know. Critical of A, you know, do something. I'm here. What's happening here, really? You know, it looks like a variable declaration that it's doing something. And really, there's somewhere defined an object which is critical for critical section. And when I put critical of A, really what it's doing is it's instantiating a critical section object, which is going to acquire the critical section. Then I do something as it's written here. But when I exit the local area where that critical was defined, it's going to destroy the object, and the destruction of the object is going to cause the critical section to be released. And for, you know, traditional programmer, we look at that and it's like, what you don't see that something is being done, and creating critical section is a complex piece of code. It can be slow because it's often an OS call, and you don't even see that at the end it's released. So you're here looking, okay, memory is being allocated. Where's my memory freed? You know, you're just like, I've been trained all my life. At the beginning of the thing, you allocate the memory. At the end, you release it. It's like, where is it being released? You don't see it being released.
So your
It's all hidden.
programming book is going to have some debug ideas.
Which programming book? I'm not a writer. There is, and you know, as you're talking about debugging, if I go back on my HHC program here and I do run, you know, it's going to run the program. Now, if you remember well, we had two functions in that program. We had the key 10, and we had, you know, whatever what was get digit, I think, was the name of the other function. But if you remember, one of them had an export in front of it saying that is a user-facing function. The other one did not. I could have put an export, but I did not. The system, when I click on run, it just scans the program and says, okay, there's only one exported function in that program, so that is the one the user wants to run. Which is why it's just asking me, what is the parameter you want to put here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I run it, and here's my result. Sorry, I went too fast. Now I can click debug. The same thing happens, except that here I'm in the debugger. So you do have a built-in debugger, which is going to step in, step out, step over, etc. You can look at all your variables, including the variables, the local variables are going to show in the system, and you know, can skip over and execute. I mean, it's just one function call here, so not much to debug. But there is a built-in debugger. It's not wonderful. It's definitely better than the one on the 48. You know, but you do have the ability to
why don't you
debug.
go ahead and make a small little program that will draw something onto the screen, just do a little bit of graphical stuff.
A circle.
Color screen, a lot of the ideas people are having are around using that for some interesting stuff. So let's do something that draws something interesting on the screen.
Yeah, you can single step through programs too.
Yes. Yeah, you can.
And the debugger will follow that through.
Yeah. So as I was saying, most of the numerical world stuff is actually not case sensitive. The CAS stuff is case sensitive, and you have to be very careful. You do have sometimes functions which have a very, very similar name with different case that can mean something different. But as a general rule, whatever you do in the numerical world and the programming environment, unless you specifically ask for CAS program, is the numerical world is not case sensitive, with some exception of some functions which are, but as a general it's not.
Variables.
What?
Variables are case sensitive.
Variables are case sensitive, for example. So I have no clue what I'm gonna do here, but for a column equal, 1, 2, whatever. Do I have an end? And let's just make, I don't know, rectangles. One of the advantage of moving from RPL, RPN to algebraic entry is that you know how many parameters are in your function. Because you got, parentheses, parameter, 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 end of parameter. You know the function is being called with 1, 2, 5, 10 parameters. This is not the case in RPN, you don't know. So you have either to provide all the parameters all the time, which can be a pain in the rear end, or you have to make multiple functions which do pretty much the same thing but with different number of parameters. I'll just do an aparté, go around and put that thing in RPN to show you one of the things that we did. RPN here?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I want to tell you. If I take something such as the probability, random, density, normal function, normal distribution, of, So normal, distribution out of what was it 1. Here's it would be the density probability. Now the normal D function. If I was to go back in algebraic, which I'm not going to do, can take either one argument, and then there's an assumption that we're working with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1, or 3 arguments with the random variable, the mean, and the standard deviation. How do you do that in RPN? Well, the solution we found, if I actually put 3 numbers here, I can do normal D of 3, and I really just told the RPN evaluator, that normal D function, it can take a variable number of arguments, and in this case, I want you to use the version of it which takes 3 arguments.
So the way we did that, if there is no specification, when it's an argument that has multiple options, it just takes the first one that's available. So normal D with no parentheses is the equivalent of taking a single argument. If it has the parentheses but no input, it's still the same thing. If it has the 3, then it will try and take 3 arguments. If you put a 2, it tries to take 2. So it is a little bit different, but it does allow you to have a little more control over what's happening there. Now, when you call items from the menu, it should correctly identify, is this a command that accepts multiple versions of inputs? If it only has a single input, it will execute immediately, because there's no other form it can be used in. So if you call a function and it returns parentheses while you're working in the home screen, that means there's multiple ways or arguments that can be put into this. There's certain commands, for example, the max command. It will take a list as a single argument, or you can specify take 16 arguments. Okay, so it has a wide range of things that it can take and apply to. The solution in the past with the 48 series was either have different commands with different things, or it would look at the arguments on the stack, and you'd have, for example, a symbolic number, or symbolic and nothing else. So it would identify which command it was that way. Unfortunately, we can't do that directly, but in practice, it ends up actually working out quite well, because most of the default behaviors are the things that you want to do all the way, or most commonly, so you can just execute those quickly without any other user intervention.
So some of the worst of Founder in terms of number of arguments are the graphing function, and the worst of the worst is the text out function, which allows you to draw or to display some text on the screen. Most of the drawing function will take as an optional first argument a graphic. So you have 10 graphic in the system named from G0 to G9, and G0 happens to be the screen. So you have basically really 9 off-screen graphics, G1 through G9, and G0 is the screen. By default, if you do not specify as the first argument a graphic to a destination graphic, it's going to use the screen. Something like the rectangle function can take between 0 and 6 arguments. So if you put 0 arguments, it's going to assume the rectangle is going to fill the whole screen or the whole graphic, and it's going to be G0, and the color is going to be, I think, white from memory.
Okay, so Cyrille, can you pop up the commands and go to the drawing, and then select your rect key, and then hit help.
Oh yeah, you should do that, you're right. Also, all the graphing functions, you have 2 versions of them. You have one version which has an _p, which stands for pixel, where you put coordinate in screen, coordinate from 0 to 320 and 0 to 240. And you also have a Cartesian version, which are going to take into account the current Cartesian plan definition. So kind of the equivalent of the whole, on the 48, you could put the coordinate as a complex number, and that would have been a Cartesian coordinate, or you could put a list of binary numbers, which would be pixel-wise. Now if I go back to my, what was I doing? I was doing a rectangle. And I'm just going to press the help key I was talking about earlier, and here you go. Isn't that great? Here's the help for the help. Sorry, the help for the rect function, rectangle function, which tells you pretty much everything about it, including all the optional parameters there. I do know that.
So since those are labeled as optional with the brackets, notice that every single item in there is optional. So to erase the screen back to plain white, all you do is call rect.
So if I go back in home,
it uses as default the G0.
And if I do rect and wait, yeah. If I put one argument here,
can you put in commas without anything in between? If you just wanted to specify the last argument?
can you repeat that?
If you just want to specify, in this case, a different color, but leave everything else.
So that's what he's doing. So that's green.
That's great.
So that was what, just
So
comma, comma, comma?
it
No.
recognizes that.
Only one argument can
So
only be
put in an
colored.
RGB there.
We have
instead.
0 arguments, I think he was asking, empty parentheses.
So the drawing commands are quite intelligent. They recognize, is this a set of coordinates? If it's not a set of coordinates, it moves on to the next item. It says, is this a color? And every single one of those behaves the same. We've tried to get those very consistent. So there's multiple ways to specify the color. It can be a integer value. There's basically an RGB macro that takes 3 or 4 inputs. That's the recommended way. So you specify 3 numbers, and that's your RGB values. So it is different than prior HP models, definitely. The upsides of taking this approach in the programming, it is much, much, much more consistent with everything anybody who does any sort of programming will ever see. It's very, very standard. The function-based idea, the idea that the parameters can have multiple versions that accept slightly different arguments, and
Cyrille, put a delay loop in between each rec so that you can not just see the final result on the screen.
hey,
It's too fast.
second, Richard.
That's the first time I've had that that complaint.
Jason's not here, and a number of things that you have said, I feel would be very useful in promotional write-ups, whether it be something on the website or whatever it might
Oh,
be.
send him an email.
Huh?
Send him an email.
Okay.
So, the idea behind the programming language really was that we wanted to make it consistent and standard. Any student who learns to program on this
That's what
will
a
be
thousand,
very
I think.
easily
Wow.
able to move into any other programming language. It's not a completely different way of thinking and looking at things. Additionally, you can go back later and really read and understand what's going on here. I love RPN, I love RPL, but let's be honest, when you go back after a month or two and try and look at the thing, you very often have to just single step through in your mind and figure out what's actually going on there. It's much more,
It's a write-only language.
it's more maintainable code in many ways. It remembers the comments stay in the source file, and it's really a very useful language. If you've seen any of the speed tests and comparisons, things that you're doing in the user language on this are equivalent in speed to what you could do with Saturn assembly on the 50G. In many cases, it's right up there, above it or below that. So what you had to do assembly with to get before, you can do with the built-in user language. So that speed boost really makes it so you can do things that you never could do before with user RPL without it going ridiculously slow.
Hey Tim, history has taught us that if you don't have a name for the language, many will come out of the woods. What is it?
HPPPL.
HPPP.
Prime Programming Language.
Okay.
That's what it's in the manual. Just had to pick something. People may call it basic. That's the quote official name. So picked that just because we needed to pick something. We had a deadline. Couldn't think of anything better. We also thought it kind of homage back to PPC. So.
Is that
A
manual
name is
available
better than no
online?
name.
I don't believe the manual is available yet. It should be very shortly.
Will it be up on the?
So it'll be on the HP website. It will be in the product
Can you clear the
CD
screen
when the
first?
CD rolls with the future shipments. It will be in the emulator, just basically everywhere we can make it available.
Does that mean these production ones don't have
No.
Maybe we can have a demo copying from Excel arranged into the spreadsheet.
Okay, so he was asking about the connectivity kit. You can maybe look at that later. In the connectivity kit, all of the applications, you can pull up and edit all the variables and objects. So when you go to the spreadsheet object, or the spreadsheet application, in the connectivity kit, you have a full spreadsheet grid, and you can copy and paste objects back and forth with Excel for sharing things. So, anyway, back to you, Cyrille.
The spreadsheet has some functionality which are not available in Excel. My favorite demo is that one. So really what's happening, something you cannot do in Excel. I mean, you see here, I can put whatever I want here in A1, the same way you do in Excel. Some of the things you can do here that you cannot do in Excel. In Excel, you either put a formula or you put pretty much nothing on number, but it doesn't really matter. Here, I can actually do, a function of some type. So I could select a bunch of cells here and put number between, 0 and 10.
Huh.
Now, if you were to do that in Excel, the only way to do it would be to put a formula random in the cells. But it's a formula. Every time you move, it gets recalculated. So your random number keeps changing. Pain in the butt. Here it's not. I could have had it as a formula. I chose not to, just to show that you can do stuff here that you can not really do in Excel. Another great thing, in my opinion, is really the column and row-wise definitions, which you also cannot do in Excel. Let me just change that back to -1. Oops. Not the right man, wrong minus. Okay. I can put here a formula which is going to be cell of row -1, comma 1. Row -2, comma 1. So of course, the same way you have in Excel, you do have the row and col variables which represent the cell being currently evaluated. And here I do have a way to access a cell from the spreadsheet just by using its coordinate, row column coordinate. And what I'm saying is that in that column, if a specific cell of that column does not have a specific definition, it's going to be looking at that column-wise definition and applying that column-wise definition. So if I put a 1 in A1, really what is going to happen is that when it tries to evaluate A2, I did not enter anything for A2. So it's going to look at what is here. So A2, the row is going to be 2 in this case. So cell of 2 minus 1, so cell of 1, 1 is A1, so it's 1, plus cell of 0, 1, there's no cell 0, 1, so its value is 0, so the addition is going to be 1. So A2 has a value of 1. Same thing for A3. And I get Fibonacci. Just like that.
Oh, yeah.
How far down can I go? Well, I can go as far down as I want. Did I have to do a copy and paste 1,000 times, 100 times? No. It's just using the definition at the top of the column, recalculating it everywhere.
Oh.
You can do it at a spreadsheet level. I'm just going to remove it from here so we don't have perturbation. I can do it here for the full spreadsheet. I can put a formula. Combination of row, column. There you go.
Oh.
And I can go all the way to the bottom. The maximum is going to be ZZ, and I'm gonna not go at the top, but at the bottom. Of course you get 999. It's CAS. Is that gonna work? I'm not sure actually. Okay, here we go. So what I was doing numerically, I can do it symbolically, and here I can say equal column A. I think I have to do A column A. It's gonna be. Why is that not working? Oh yeah, CAS might not like that. What's a trick to do it? I'm not sure I can do it at a column-wise definition with the CAS, but I can definitely do equal, something else here. I can do select equal A1 prime. Where's prime? Where's my prime? CAS, here we go. That definitely you cannot do with Excel. I see some people over there with their mouths just like that.
Having the ability to have a spreadsheet, you can see it actually is useful in a lot of ways other than the standard, let's figure out how many units we have to sell to break even. It gets used in the business. You can do a lot of mathematical teaching within a spreadsheet, especially once you have the ability to tie in symbolic operations.
Yeah.
So go ahead. If you have not played with the spreadsheet, I'd really recommend it. You can do a lot of really, really neat things in there.
Yeah. What the hell just happened?
Just gave it a random one.
Yeah, of course. Okay. No, it's still not working. I don't know why.
It's a formula.
No, I wasn't putting it as a formula. Okay, let's try back to the numerical. I probably was in CAS mode. Okay, that's better. Which version is that? Woohoo, we've got it. So that's actually not yet available. That's not from the general release yet. It's what we're working on. And we've got our plot views also. And one of the things somebody suggested to me to do that, and I think it's really cool, is the Hanoi Tower version of Camembert, as we say in French, pie charts. You can browse your point, and I can actually go in plot detail. I can go and change the value here directly, and they also change on the other side. Okay. And they should be changing on the other side, and something just crashed. As I say, it's not yet released. Now it works, and you can change things back and forth. I don't know any other question you might want to be asking.
Questions. Start walking around with the microphone. Back there first. One final note before the questions. So we do recognize that the strong point of most calculator programming, especially with the older machines, really is the quick calculations. You know, the back of the envelope, one-off stuff. You make a little function that does one thing and helps you automate some calculations. That is still possible. You can do quick little function definitions using the define. The programming is slower, no question, in terms of, you know, you're no longer pressing a sequence of keys and it's like a macro language. So there are downsides. There definitely are. We're not saying this is, you know, magic, fix all, everything. There are some downsides. We do feel the upsides so outweigh that it really is good for, you know, students, long-term maintenance of your programs and various things. So just question time now.
Just a quickie, can you tell us what algorithm he uses for the numerical integration? It does not give the same results as any other HP calculator I've ever tried.
There's a ton of them. The numeric, so integration can be called in lots of ways, but if you call it from home, really the first thing it's going to try to do is ask the CAS, can you make something of that? And the CAS is going to do its stuff. It's first going to try to do it symbolically. If it can, it's going to give a symbolic answer, and then we're going to try to apply the whatever you gave as input-output. But I believe that is going to be done also by the CAS, and the CAS does not use BCD arithmetic. The CAS uses 58-bit reals. So basically it uses floats after having removed 8 or I think it dropped it to 6-bit worth of precision. If the CAS cannot do it symbolically, then the CAS is going to try to do it numerically. But the CAS numerical method sometimes says, yeah, well, whatever, I'm done with that. At which point it's called back by the numerical evaluator who say, okay, well, the CAS has just chalked on that, and I'm going to go and use the old HP48 integration function and try to do something with it. So depending as to what you're entering, it might be a very, very different function which is called, and that's why you might have results that you're not really, that might be slightly different.
Okay, this is a function that, okay, if it can't be done symbolically, what algorithm does a numeric?
Which function does the CAS use? I have no clue. Which algorithm does the numerical mod use? It's the one from the 48. I don't remember. It's I was going to say Riemann approximation or something like that, but I don't quote it on that.
In the release version, I don't know, but it's a adaptive numerical of some kind, and it's very, very good.
Yeah, because it is different from the 48.
It's different from the 48, and it's the one that's in there is very, very good, and it can do a lot of numerical evaluations that were not possible in the older HP. I don't know exactly what it is. Okay. Bernard gets going, and people start complaining about the numerical integration, and then he's saying, no, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good, and then he comes back the next day and, well, I completely rewrote a new numerical engine and give it a try. So
That wasn't quite good.
Thank you. Back to number formats, and I know most of the market is for math classes.
There's a question here on the first.
No, not commas though. Complex number.
That's a big one, and I'm not a big fan of the way it's done on the calculator. I'm an old 48 guy, and I like the conciseness, blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly. You understood me, and some people said it right. I like to do parentheses, A, comma, B, close parentheses.
Well, what I was getting to is to use J and to put it in front of the imaginary component, like electrical engineering.
So you double A?
Oh, yeah. You have a choice between I
Have
and
it as
J.
an option.
We could have it as an option. There's lots and lots and lots of ways to enter complex numbers, including you can do. Here I'm in radian, for example, and if I do 2 angle 6, what is degree? 6 degree 4, it's actually gonna work properly. Yeah. it seems to. There's lots and lots and lots of ways to enter complex number, including I could have had that 6, with a unit underscore degree, well, underscore degree, and it would understand it properly. It would not think, okay, it's 6 and it's radians because I'm in radian mode. So there's lots of ways to enter them. You can convert the display from one form to another here, just shift angle and it's gonna swap, but I'm sorry I don't have a J because it's really not used in mathematics, or very little used in mathematics. And when it is used in mathematics, it just means something different. So we're not doing it. One of the issues we're having is that as we make this device more and more complicated, well, not more and more complicated, but more and more complete, in order to put in directly stuff coming from different fields, is that different people from different fields are going to use the same word to mean something different.
I think you're making this too complex.
Yeah,
It's very old standard.
Math people, use J as the third root of -1, not as the square root of -1, and they're gonna complain. The same way the example I was gonna give is on log. Most of you are numerical in nature. You're coming from the old numerical calculator, and there's ln for Neperian logarithm, and there's log for base 10 logarithms. People coming from the symbolic world, they just use logarithm, log, ln. It means the same to them. So if you go in the CAS, actually you press on the log function, you're going to get log 10, because if you type log in CAS, you get a base E log, not a base 10 log.
No.
It's very confusing. If I go in CAS here and I type log of 10,
This is capital. Try lowercase.
yeah, sorry. Thank you. It didn't take it. Did you see that it was transformed to ln? If I want to log in base 10, it's like that. And if you talk to symbolic person, you say, that's crazy. Why do you say log is ln? I say, that's crazy. Why do you say that log is log in base 10? You cannot get them together and get them happy. And the more we try to bring more and more stuff in the calculator, the more we hit this type of problem where there is no win. And one of the very nice things about Prime that other calculators do not do is we have separated the symbolic and the numerical. So if you're doing numerical, and you're in numerical mindset. The symbolic people get in the symbolic world and they don't annoy each other.
So we did introduce the ability to call CAS commands in the numeric side because there was a lot of complaining about, well, I really want to be able to do this. Okay, that is nice in many ways, but it also introduces more of those inconsistencies. So where slight differences in behavior from the different locations cause strangeness to happen. So for example, the individual who spends a lot of time making graphics about the way that the calculator works and posts them all over, the root cause of basically all his complaints is that he expects it to be behaving in one way and it's behaving slightly different, and then he starts mixing numerical and the CAS commands, and it starts acting strangely. And we recognize and understand that there are lots of those kind of issues on those edges, and we'll work to be improving those. But there are inherent issues in many cases that just do not cleanly work. So you can either tick off one side of the camp or tick off the other. And we don't want to dumb things down to basically force everybody to behave certain ways in order to try and eliminate all of those. That's really not the goal for the system. We do recognize there's a lot of work and we'll be working on that. So further questions?
There's a bunch of ways to do logs, by the way, as Tim was talking, and where you can start to see some of the issues. One of the issues is we've tried to make it smooth to use stuff from somewhere else without always having to do the CAS dot, which can be cumbersome after a while. And in lots of cases it works well, but in some cases, as Tim was saying, it causes issues. And because we've trained you that, oh yeah, you can take these shortcuts that work in 80 or 70% of the simple cases, you get used to take the shortcut, and one time you're going to use it in a way where it doesn't make sense. And you're going to get a weird result, and it's going to be, why am I going that? It used to always work. It's like, yes, it used to always work because we are waving a magic wand in front of your eye, so you will not see the complexity and the subtlety of what you're doing and why you are wrong. And we hid it from you, and it trained you to do it that way, and now you're hitting a point where it's not possible to magic anymore, and you're seeing the real problem.
And if you think about the 50G, the number of times people have complained about the computer algebra sticking its nose in during a calculation and doing something different. And you don't notice that it's happening, but you end up with a different result. That really was the driving goal, to split the numerical and the CAS separate. There's plenty of times you want them together, but there's plenty of times you want them apart. And when it was completely 100% split, you have complaints in one direction. When it's completely 100% together, there's complaints in the other direction. And so it really is just trying to find that balance. And I suspect that things will be tuned and adjusted and improved. On the 49/50, it took ages and ages before that thing was not crashing constantly. Remember the first year of the 49? I mean, you could do anything and you'd crash. It was constant releases going on. Prime is so far beyond that in terms of stability. And the standard average user of this device is not going to be running into these little inconsistencies. They're going to be staying in the numerical screen and doing calculations. They'll be in the CAS screen. And we feel it's a very, very good device, and I really hope as people start to look at it, I've had at least 3 or 4 people come up and just say, wow, I really am impressed with this. Hearing people say that we've hit something they were trying to do ages ago with the class interactivity, and just incredibly impressed with what's happened. It's really good to hear. So we really hope that you'll enjoy the calculator and the system, and we'll promote it and tell everybody to buy lots. Just one last quick one, and then...
Quick question. How will system updates happen?
Let me show that before we go too far.
There's an app for that.
So system updates.
Talk to it.
Actually, yeah, it's going to show you, but the connectivity kit is going to be able to check for...
So in the connectivity kit, it will check automatically. You go to check for update. It's not getting anything right now. I'm not connected on the network, and the file is not there yet. It will be placed shortly. So that automatically downloads to the computer, and then when the calculator is plugged in, you right-click and say update. That's all. It does it, flashes everything.
When you say connectivity,
How long will it take?
Is that?
So this connectivity kit software, so this is what I was showing with the classroom activities that ships with every unit. Like I said, Ben, it is Windows only at this point, but it is written in Qt. And then with the calculator plugged in on the USB, you tell it to update. It puts it into update mode, it downloads, it installs it, reboots the system, and comes right back up. So there's no pins, there's no sticking things in the back, there's no going out and searching, is there an update? It will just automatically find it, and it's ready for you.
Does there any chance you come up with a Mac-only thing that only does an update?
At this point, no. We're not in full control of the update code, and it's only Windows at this point. So,
Is it possible for one prime to update another?
not at this point.
But it's potentially, or it's a good idea, or?
Everything's potential.
But it's not a good idea.
Are you funding us? Sure. So, Bruce.
When you update, you lose anything?
What?
When you update, you lose anything program codes?
No, it stays there. The only time it's lost is if there has been an internal change and we've incremented a version number, and then it will recognize that and discard it. So that does not happen really at this point because all the applications are stable and have what they have. But
Back up the calculator.
Each application has its own version number attached to the files. So
I need a micro USB.
if we were to update one of the applications to in a way that would require a file change, only the data that you have stored in this application would be lost, the rest would not.
That's micro SD, a USB cable with a micro.
Oh, you see.
Oh, Joe's got one. Joe's got one.
And Joe's the winner.
So the connectivity kit. Yep, I got one. Thank you very much. And wait for it to come up. Okay, so how old is this version? Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about the applications, so I can come in here to my application library. I open the spreadsheet, or I crash it.
So as we are saying, the HP49 used to crash all the time, but now the team is on our team. You know, we have something so much more stable.
Careful about Microsoft.
It's not HP, it's Microsoft.
So
Yeah.
to do full
boot
backup,
They should have an option.
you right click on your calculator and say backup. And then it downloads everything. I save my file as a zip, and there you go. There's your backup. You can restore back that file like that. So it's now sending everything back onto the unit, full clone.
That's not on an app.
He's running Windows.
I'm running Windows.
Still not on an app.
So here, for example, is your parametric. We'll go into the function. So on your function screen, so we have the symbolic screen, so you have your F1 through F0. So I can get in here and edit these. Assign functions, I can select colors, set plot variables, numerical values. So it's application editors for all the various applications. I'm not sure why the spreadsheet's crashing. It's probably Cyrille's fault. So
Oh no, it's because there's a new software, the new version of the spreadsheet for the calculator, but not for the.
okay, but so I saved that to my calculator. I come back in here to the function library. There's my sine of x. And I hit plot, and there it is. So it really is a much, much more capable connectivity and editor than we've ever had on any HP calculator in the past. It's not just drag and drop files, but really you can get in and actually edit things and do stuff.
And how do we obtain that connectivity kit?
It's on your CD. So it's on there, and it'll be up for download as soon as it finishes winding its way through the upload process within HP. So,
Is there any serial or USB to USB, device to device
Yes.
exchange?
you will get no.
No.
No, and we'll leave it at that. There's an errata sheet that tells you that all the discussion about that in the manual is a mistake. And we'll leave it at that. So don't attempt to plug two units together.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. And we'll leave it at that. Concern item in HP is brand recognition, that people know what HP is and associate HP with quality products and things they want to buy. That being said, calculators is such a tiny, tiny, tiny part of that. Most people within HP are unaware that HP sells calculators. When you have a consumer product, the commercial sales team that sell large deals into various places, they're not selling calculators. You know, so it is difficult in many ways within HP. That being said, the people higher up in HP are aware that we do calculators, and they hear when people send nasty grams to the CEO, they hear about it, and then we hear about it. And it usually doesn't help. So if any of you are the ones sending nasty grams about why can't I buy an HP Prime on the HP website right now today, you know, ask you to please stop. Okay? So The brand recognition is there, but not specifically for calculators.
Question, okay, are they aware of the concept like the airlines have? You've got a couple of feeder lines that are basically breaking even, but you make the money when the folks hit the big Dallas and all of a sudden fly to Paris.
So the question was around marketing and business stuff, and I'm sure the answer is probably in yes, but I really can't address. I don't know. So, another question from Richard.
How many calculator-related websites are HP websites? Different countries have
Are you
them?
talking to, like, within HP?
Yeah, no, HP. Yeah.
So that's extremely hard to say because the HP website is so big, and they're always working on redesigning and upgrading things, bringing stuff from the past and getting it into the new field so it can be managed. That being said, if you have not visited hp.com/calculators recently, really should go visit and take a look. There's some video links. It is very simple and easy to navigate. You click on which calculator you're interested, it takes you to a thing that has the calculator. You click on it, there's a page with all the support information. It isn't that bad. Compared to how it used to be, it is much, much, much improved. So you're never going to get a single, go to hp.com, click calculators, and here's every important calculator, anything ever. That's just not how they do the websites anymore. But the website is much, much better than it used to be. And if you haven't looked in a while, I would recommend visiting, and Joe's shaking his head at me. So why are you shaking your head at me?
Well, when you go to that first page, /calculators, it has lots of great links. So you click on one because you want to find out about a particular calculator. It shows you the categories of calculators. Click on the one, and then it takes you to a list of all the calculators. It's almost impossible to get information about one particular calculator.
Well, then from that list, you click on the picture, and you're in that page. That's been my experience.
Or search by
I would like you to show
It takes you to a page
this.
with 4 calculators, and you have to page past that one, then past that one, then past that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry it's not all on one page. That's just not how they do web pages.
I think the only way you can do it is search by model number, but that's a challenge too because HP uses numbers for multiple products.
It's just part of their template system that they have.
It's the template system used by the corporation, and it's not anything we can control. I think it is much better than it used to be. I really do. And there's not a whole bunch of dead links and things that used to run into all the time.
So I have an observation and question that I'm not going to ask you to answer, but I think most people in this room would agree. I think a lot of HP's reputation as a quality provider of electronics is built on the back of what the calculators did to people who are now decision makers in business, and I don't think your management knows it as well as the customers do.
Our direct managers do, yes. They know that and they understand that, but the HP is a big ship.
Yeah.
And the further you go up the chain, the less decisions are going to be made based on what is happening to the calculator division. So that being said, the top managers are aware of the calculators, and we do get questions down from on high about what's going on and what are we working on and things like that. So they are definitely aware of us still.
I know Tulsa is a small market, just like calculators are with HP. But we're having a hard time even finding them in the stores. Casios are there, TIs are there. Hardly ever is there an HP.
So this is a question you can address on the question and answer tomorrow. But what it boils down to is calculators in stores are shrinking and have been for a very, very long time. And if you're not the top seller, or if you don't offer huge bribes to pay them to sell those units, which HP by policy does not do that type of thing, it's hard to get in. So there are models available in the office stores for the financial units, but yes, the American graphing market is locked up by TI. That's just the reality. It started back in the 90s, and you can't come in and shove aside the 800 Gorilla. It's just not feasible. So there's places in the world where you cannot buy TI calculators except by ordering. So it's not just it's not an everywhere type thing. It definitely is highly dependent. But it's not something that we can, in all honesty, control in many ways. You know, you just can't get in on the pegs. It's one of the hardest things to do in today's retail, where everything is shrinking and it's all more and more web-based. So it's not that we don't hear, it's just we can't do a whole lot. We have to do things. Crime has gotten a lot of very, very high interest from a lot of various retailers. So that's a huge thing for us, and we're trying to capitalize on that. So I'll hand this over to Cyrille. I think I got a buzz on my phone.
What was he doing?
We're answering questions, I guess.
Just keeping it out of Richard's hand.
Oh, no, yeah, that's a great thing. So please, questions for me. Jake.
Is it a tough situation being so many time zones away from Tim? I assume you communicate every day, and do you know?
It's great. I don't have to wash every day.
You're making him work every day.
You're French. I didn't know that you did that.
We've been working to move up in the world. It has its ups and downs. So on Prime, if you look at the time zones of people working, we have people in Melbourne, Australia, people in Singapore. Well, actually, from a time zone standpoint, we have people in China in 2 locations, people in Melbourne, people in Singapore, me in France, Bernard Paris in France also, people in Canada, the team here in Fort Collins, and people also in Tucson, Arizona, I think. So we're really a dispersed team, and it does help to have full coverage, for example, for the Australian team, with Tim being their part of the day and me being another part of the day, so that we can have continuous support for these people who we work with. So, here are some advantages. Also, some of the work we've done, it's not true for everything, but some of the work we're doing is sequential in nature, and we're working together. And in these cases, it does help for me to do some work, to finish my day, to check it in, so that Tim can pick it up and continue. So it's kind of a relay type situation, and it does help too. There are something where you do require multiple people working together, and yet they cannot be working at the same time on it physically. You cannot have the 2 people work on the same files at the same time, and having that offset does work and does help in these cases. For other things, it sucks, and it's sometimes good, sometimes not good. We make the most of the situation, is what it boils down to.
So follow on to that. Are most of your meetings audio teleconferences?
Most are just audio conferences. We use pretty much IM as quick means of communication, quick question answer. As soon as it gets to more than a couple of lines, the phone becomes faster. And we do also have set up teleconferences at regular intervals between individuals and also with full groups. That's how we work.
How many emails do you get a day, just roughly?
I've managed to cut down through that quite a bit. I've realized that it's very effective to actually not reply to emails when somebody just keeps blasting you with 500 of them. They learn not to blast you with 500 and just to ask one, to put everything in one email in one go when they notice that you answer that type of thing. So that with the advance of IM, which really is great for very short question answers, and the proper use of regular schedule phone calls does allow you to drop down significantly the number of email you have to deal with.
So you have conference calls pretty regularly?
Yes, we do have conference calls pretty regularly. So the number of email, I don't know, I'm not counting. We are talking less, in my case, it's definitely much less than 100. Email that I need to read really is less than 50. You always have the people just blast to everyone and you reply to all saying, okay, do you count them or not is a question. They do require some of your time, and sometimes there might be something set up, below that you don't see immediately, and you might run into trouble.
So to get your attention, we put one of your kids' names in the email and the subject.
No. I mean, there's definitely, and everybody's different in that, but I do definitely have, you know, a list of names that I do recognize and where I'm gonna put priority, and list of names that I do recognize and gonna just trash directly. You know, because I know that I can read 1 out of 4 emails coming from these people or these groups, and get the gist of it, and you know what's happening. Everybody has their way of working through emails. You know, it works for me. Anybody else? No?
You've moved to France for
Personal
reasons and what have you. Do you envision continuing to live in France forever?
That's going to be a personal choice when, you know, I see what happens between me, my wife, the kids, my family, her family. We'll see what happens.
There's always a possibility we'll move back. I don't
No?
know. I don't know.
No, I don't know if it would be Idaho or anything else. It's, you know, no clue. No future-looking statements are going to be made. Any other question?
Now's
Anything?
the time, guys. Now's the time.
So if you're done playing with your unit, appreciate, you can stick it in the back. There's a suitcase back there. Just go ahead and slide it in there.
There's one. Do you have
And you can do that.
a dongle? There's only one dongle.
Nope, I've got those.